Alrighty then.
Mm-hmm.
That was your computer?
That was.
I take it?
Yeah. That's James with his iPod again.
Easy listening.
You ever get the feeling that everything in America is completely fucked up? You know that feeling that the whole country is like 1 inch away from saying, that's it, forget it. Let's see,
Thanks, Mr. Miller. Now look, here's a house full of bees. You think the honey badger cares? It doesn't give a shit.
Listen, let's get one thing straight.
Price is right.
Guns don't kill people. I do.
Wow. Thanks for that, Billy.
Stand up in there proudly and say, God bless you. God bless you. Bill of Rights. Thank God for the amendment. I'm not ashamed to say I'm proud of the Fifth Amendment. And I'm proud to admit on camera and on the internet that I will never
some apologies are in order.
So my son's on screen restriction right now, and you can see his face plastered against the studio door there.
Nice.
So him watching the Liberty Tree intro, that's just like he's getting his fix. I guess as close as he can get to watching the screen.
He's like, oh.
Which is the worst thing ever.
Caressing the glass. Like, oh, it's so beautiful.
Ones and zeros, ones and zeros.
He's finding Nemo in the Matrix right now.
Mm-hmm. So who's that?
That was Talino Sanchez. Surprised you didn't recognize him being the fan of... By the way, that music is not banda. I've been corrected.
Okay.
It is narco corrido.
Okay.
Which is basically gangsta rap.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We did talk about that.
Yeah. Did we talk about me being wrong?
Oh, yeah, all the time. You're usually not here.
Yeah.
But
not nearly enough, I don't think.
You haven't heard that actual podcast we do.
This is just a cover, so you don't figure out your friends don't really like you.
So we just had Paulie here. We have Jake. And we have James, the complete Liberty Tree crew. You know, Paulie's here. And I was just thinking, I'm like, we have 5 dudes in here. I'm like, the first thought I had, like, if someone drone strike this room, that'd be pretty much my entire social circle.
It would be a huge loss for Santa Rosa, too.
Right. What I'm getting at, it's nice to be around friends.
Or win. Nice to see you guys, too.
You could almost say there were too many dudes in the dude room, if you want to drop an inside joke.
You could say that.
By the way, I have gifts for you guys. Here you go. We got Jake, our guest producer today. James hanging out in the back. Oh, sorry. Hope that didn't hurt. Maddie, I already gave you one, but this one's better than the last one.
Oh, sweet.
These are clips that go into your the molly on your tactical gear. It hooks into the loops, and as you can read, says Jefferson's State of Mind.
Very nice.
Kind of our unofficial slogan. You're welcome.
Printed these?
Yep.
Did you paint these?
No, 3D printer, baby.
3D painter.
You're onto something there.
Wouldn't that just be
it's
a
like
painter?
It's like a 3D printer, but in 2D.
I didn't know you could do this with your... whatever you call it.
That's the second one of those I've given you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Painter.
I love it.
I'd like the old one back, by the way, since you don't value.
No, I do. I do.
Oh man! So, do you want to kick it off with that video that we had queued up? Or,
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I'm gonna kick it over
because we got to this. I went hunting this morning with Paulie, which is we're duck hunting, which means you're just sitting crouched in wet grass, getting rained on, just telling jokes for hours,
drinking beer. Well, I guess not in that case.
And this video came up. I was like, "Do you ever see that one video with the ATF agent?" And he goes, "No." I was like, "Oh," and I explained it to him, and he was dying laughing. I was like, "Shh,
you're scaring the ducks, dude."
And so he went home and immediately watched it. And so we took our own trucks out. And I got home. I just walked through my door, and he texted me back. He's like, "That's the greatest video I've ever seen."
Let's see it. I think we've shown it before on the podcast, but it's worth revisiting. It's one of the greatest videos ever made. It is.
We know the date this was uploaded. I mean, this is from 2020. So this is when, like, the heat of
July
people
7th,
that never owned guns were starting to ask their friends for guns.
Right.
There could have been riots or demonstrations down your street. Everything was shut down. And this was kind of one of the things that got us through a small, miserable period of time.
Hey, turn around. Let me see your hands. Turn around. Let me see your hands. Okay, let me see your hands. I need to see some ID. Get on the ground. Get on the ground now. Get on.
Do we want to paint the visual for...
Yes, we do.
In case you're only listening and not watching the video version of this podcast,
which does not exist. So do you just explain what the setup is? Like what premise is this video? Is that
well, it couldn't have hit at a better time either because of like what Jake was saying, that not only was everyone, what did you say, it was like buying guns and looking for guns and asking to borrow their guns from their friends, but we were feeling the heavy boot of authoritarianism starting to step slowly and heavily down on our necks at this time. July 2020 was
I prefer the red boot instead of the blue boot.
Exactly.
Fucking dummy.
And so here's this fucking agent of the state with all of the thinks he has all of the authority in the world.
Bureaucratic swagger.
Just arrogance that knows no bounds. And just wondering, how can this be happening to me?
Right.
Yeah, but the authoritarianism you refer to is an ATF agent at the front door of someone's house asking for something that they don't have the right to ask for, right?
Yeah, essentially what they were doing is they were, not that there's a gun registry or anything like that, but they did happen to have a printed list of what guns everyone owned, and they were going door to door, just like, hey, you're not in any trouble, just want to make sure you still have these guns in your possession, make sure that it lines up with the paperwork that I have. I read into this a little bit. Apparently, this hero, the guy's house I went to, he goes...
Wait, which one's the hero, the guy or the
guy
cops?
The guy in the house.
Okay.
He goes... Yeah, give me 1 second. He shut the door and he called the local cops.
Yes.
There's a guy impersonating an ATF officer on my porch.
Is the correct etiquette in that situation, I believe.
Right, so what's happening here is there's an ATF agent on the front porch of this person's house, and we're looking at the body camera of the arriving officer who, picking this up now, has his gun drawn on the ATF agent.
We're off to a good start.
Here we go.
And let's describe the body language of the ATF agent is, how would you describe it? Like,
cowardly.
Entitled authoritarian.
Oh.
Yeah, I would say entitled. Like, dude, I'm obviously a federal agent.
Right.
Which is, no one's ever tried that one before.
Works at the clubs.
917-110-3.
I'm a federal agent.
Get on the ground.
Get on the ground. I'm a federal agent.
Why wouldn't you show me your ID when I got here? Don't move forward.
You didn't ask for it.
He is at 33.
Get on the ground. We'll figure it out.
On that 10-8.
Not getting on the ground.
Well, then stay where you're at.
I'll stay where I'm at.
Fine. Why do you got to make this harder than it is?
Listen, I'm not getting on.
I have no problem making this.
I just want to see if anybody can respond as well.
Okay, so right now, you just kind of felt like
I'm
the
not
cop's
overreacting.
ego
We got to call that someone's
being
impersonating a
triggered
police officer
to the point where he's now like, oh, you know what? I'm also an authoritarian.
Right.
Yeah, are you going to try to out-authoritarian me? I have a gun drawn
much
right
like
now.
Israel-Palestine, we talk about, it's like we're watching a party from the outside through the window, and we're watching the left like drawing new lines in the sand, and they're like eating each other. This video's like that. I'm like, it's not very often I root for the cops.
Yeah. So you're
kind of rooting for the cops.
So you're pro-Israel.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
And this is the perspective of the person that called the cops. This is him just saying, I hope both teams have fun, right?
Totally. Get on the ground so I can find out who you
I was going to
are.
watch the game today, but it's something much more entertaining up front.
Fine. Do you I think I'm a police officer or something? What the heck's the matter with you? Who do you think you are? Get on the ground.
I'm not getting on the ground.
Chopper, thanks.
I'm not getting
91.7, I'm pulling up.
Oh, you
I got my ID.
Do not reach for your waist. Keep your hands up.
Dude, why would I have an O-leg shit?
Get your hands up.
Sir,
What was the name of the sheet you just said?
The Olay sheet, something like that.
Yeah, well, Olay, because he's holding it like a bull would be charging.
Gotcha.
It's an Olay sheet. My question would be if you're impersonating a federal agent, why wouldn't you have the Olay sheet?
Strong, but
4D chess.
Where my mind's going is if they're not supposed to have a document that says all of the weapons that are at House A and House B, did he just divulge the name of this database or document that
doesn't exist?
Or is that
James? I need you to start looking into that, please.
I'll look for it.
Report back.
Yep.
I like where you're going with that, Jake. Excellent.
On the
detective
ground,
work.
face down now! Face down!
You guys are making a big mistake.
You are the one making a mistake. Settle down. Face down now. All the way down. All the way. All the way.
You got my IDs right here, left pocket. Left.
And we're going to put your arm on your back.
Wait a second.
Do not resist.
I'm not resisting.
You're acting like a moron.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Don't do this. Wait a second. I got a medical condition. Get my license out of my pocket. Please.
We're getting you secured first.
Please, wait. No, whoa. Hold on. Wait, please, sir. I'm resisting. I'm not.
Stop resisting.
Would you
now.
please get my ID out of my left pocket?
Stop.
I'm begging you. My wife's pregnant. Please. It's right here.
So this guy that called the police he probably wasn't banking on the fact that this would all be documented via police body cam. And he's either on the phone with his friends at the moment trying to tell his best buddy exactly what's happening, or he's in there, with his camera phone out laughing his ass off. But I mean, I assume that when this got released, it was just like it blew his mind at the success of his plan.
Please get
it's
it.
going so well for him that I would actually, if I was in his shoes, I would start to be getting a little bit scared because you are fucking with the federal government right now to a degree where you're like, ooh, shit, did I actually make this happen?
My little prank went off the rails.
Yeah, I might be looking to move.
The person has no way to verify this supposed ATF person's credentials, right? And I'm assuming that this is probably the first time an ATF agent has come to his house. Either that or the reason this whole thing happened is this is, for some reason, a frequent occurrence, and he's just over it.
Yeah.
Tired of ATF guys coming to my house to see Grandpa's,
Well, either way, I'm sure the ATF did the right thing after this and left him alone.
Help me up. Just hold me up. Sir, I can't do it. Wait. Sir!
Stop resisting now!
Please help me. Sir, please get my federal creds!
Get your taser out, Joe.
No, don't do that, please. Sir, make me tase you.
Put your right arm behind your back.
Okay.
Put your right arm behind your back.
Help me up.
No.
So for those of you that are like jujitsu minded, this is what you're looking for in a prone person. Top leg is in front, and you can just kind of sit on top of this leg and isolate the whole body. Goes back to the one that's more recent in the news.
I
about
love
that
breaking
guy.
down game film like this.
Totally. Would you say that this cop has training, or he just kind of lucked into that position?
No. He doesn't have any idea what's going on.
We have two overly rotund human beings laying on top of each other on a sidewalk.
Yeah. I would say, and there's another video recently of a cop shooting a guy that's just completely beating his ass on the side of the freeway. This one just came out a couple days ago. And it's pretty obvious that the cop had to shoot this guy or he was just going to be just manhandled to death.
Right.
I mean, I'm calling for a junior high school level wrestler level proficiency for people in the protect and serve role.
There's a lot of people calling for that.
I don't know. I'd rather they not be trained in anything, to be honest. That gives us the advantage.
That means more shooting.
Yeah.
To be fair.
That's true.
That's the thinking behind it. Is people won't panic, get their ass beat, and then just start shooting other people.
Okay, I see it. So it's more of a safety measure.
Is it Henzo Gracie? Who's calling for a minimum either blue or purple belt in law enforcement?
I think I saw.
Yeah, I can't remember who said that.
Do you know how low the bar is right now for law enforcement? We'd have no cops.
Well,
that's
what I'm saying.
That's what I'm getting at.
4D chess.
No, you're going to stay on the ground and put your right arm behind your back.
Let me breathe.
You can breathe just fine.
I'm gonna. Ow, don't do that. Okay, here. My God. It is cuffed. Please stop.
Get him cuffed.
Please stop, sir. Wait a second. Sir. Please help.
The shit this guy must continuously be eating
Oh,
from
yeah,
his buddies
totally.
in the ATF.
Sir,
Sir, my wife's
that's
pregnant, sir.
They call him Sir. He doesn't have a name anymore, just
Morning,
Sir.
Please. I'm a federal agent. My God, my gun, my
You
pistol.
have no idea what you are, acting the way you are.
Sir.
Who the heck do you think you are, acting like?
Nobody. I wanted you to see my goddamn creds. The lady was freaking out, for Christ's sake. Oh.
Oh, was it a lady?
Sir, please. Please.
I didn't know that.
All right, I think we got the gist here.
This is basically a rom-com for libertarians and anarchists. Like, this is the kind of thing that I'd put on, after a stressful day. I want some me time and just wrap myself up in the couch with some ice cream and my Killdozer flag and just watch federal agents being tased on the TV.
It is pretty fun.
This is our Notting Hill.
Indeed. Did anyone by any chance see do you know that Instagram account, Tahoe, I think it's POV?
Yeah.
Did you happen to see the one that happened in Santa Rosa recently?
No.
So there was a high-speed chase with a Mustang on 101 North here, and it ended in a wreck. Nobody got hurt, thankfully, but car flipped and everything. And apparently this car had been running from the cops a bunch.
Yeah.
And they had taped over their license plate a sign that blocked the license plate, and it just said, "Will run."
Really?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a thing, like a fetish.
And then they showed the dudes getting out of the car, and if I was more on it, I'd be able to pull it up. But
POV?
Yeah, Tahoe.
What's POV stand for in this?
Point of view, I think, because it's all like dash cam.
That's that same account. Isn't that the same account that showed a couple cops squaring up with
PPV Tahoe
with a bridal party?
What?
Did you see that video?
Oh, was that them?
I think that's from the same account. It's like this bridal party, like after a wedding or something, like.
Oh, yeah. I
got out of control.
Yeah.
Just started throwing haymakers and laying chicks.
Dude, they knocked that chick out so hard. And then, did you ever see the second angle of that? That chick was going for the cop's gun.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
What the fuck? What are you going to do when you get that cop's gun?
Yeah.
You're going to shoot a cop at the fucking reception of your friend's wedding?
Amanda, no! Amanda, think about it.
What the fuck?
This bitch always makes it about her.
Yes, indeed. Anyway, so after this wreck, the CHPs pull the dudes out of the car, and they're two just well-dressed, middle-class, probably 25 to 29-year-old white dudes.
Really?
Yeah, and just in a nice, a fast fucking Mustang, just out for fun, running from the cops. Over 100 miles an hour, and they fucking just wreck this car, and it flips 100 times in the air. It's awesome. Yeah. Anyways, internet's
undefeated,
scary place.
Yes.
You know what else is scary?
What's
the amount of personal data that is floating around on the internet right now, Matt? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a sad reality that our current world, pretty much any middle schooler with an iPhone 11 can steal your identity and start using your good name to engage in all manner of sin and cybercrime. But fear not, good buddy. Uncle Ricky's Identity Guard has a solution that will protect you and your whole family. Uncle Ricky's uses an approach that they would rather not say in the copy for this ad, but if you go to libertytreelifestyle.com/Ricky and sign up for their identity protection program, you and your loved ones can rest assured that your identity will be safe from middle schoolers and Indian scam centers alike. Enter promo code KNEECAP for 15% off and get a peace of mind that only Uncle Ricky can provide. Once again, that is libertytreelifestyle.com/Ricky and enter the promo code KNEECAP for 15% off.
I feel like I'm on drugs right now.
Yeah. I did take a bunch of prednisone last weekend, so it's kicking in.
What sort of VPN should we use, though?
What's a VPN?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Half of the podcasts I listen to interrupt the show by advertising sponsored VPN.
That's like how to ostensibly keep all your stuff private, right?
Did you check out that link? The libertytreelifestyle.com/Ricky? I thought maybe you.
I'm like trying to figure out what the F you're talking about. Is this Ricky?
That's Tom Cochran.
Tom Cochran. Yeah.
So
slash Ricky.
Slash Ricky.
Matt, you had real stuff to talk about today, right?
I do.
Okay.
And so do you guys, from what I hear.
I got a little, few things keyed up.
I got nothing.
Yeah. Why don't we? I feel like I've been hogging the mic, so go ahead, Matt.
I've been doing a deep dive on propaganda, and within the context of the Bolshevik Revolution under Lenin. And the reason why I was doing this, there's two things that kind of stood out to me, is that I thought it'd be useful to look at how propaganda works, because within the context of the Bolshevik Revolution, like we have the luxury of hindsight. Like we can see how that worked out, which was horrific. The ideology was the death of over 200 million people.
Probably the second
68 in Russia, 70 something in China, 200. Once you add in the Khmer Rouge and everything, and
which is not just the Bolshevik Revolution, but the just Marxist
ideology.
Yeah.
And I also want to bring this up because we talk about just the basic tenets of propaganda, and when you pose to people, like, when we say things, it's all about how you phrase things, and then you can be kind of outlandish or hyperbolic. When we talk about Alex Jones, turning the frickin' frogs gay. It's like, that's ridiculous. And you look into it like, well, he's not wrong. Like his execution was a little kind of flamboyant, we could say.
Yeah, the fact check on that is pretty clear that the frogs didn't turn gay. They just turned into women frogs.
It turned into women, yeah.
Gatherers.
Yes.
So,
another inside joke for you guys out there.
It's also because Lenin acutely outlined how he was going to use propaganda. He was an expert at manipulating propaganda and how he understood, because the ideology does not stand on its own, much like any ideology almost, is he knew, like, if I'm going to pull this thing off, I have to sell the people on it. And so with those two things together is I'm going to throw out, I kind of distilled this down to about 6 steps of the 6 principles of propaganda. And I'm going to show you guys how Lenin used it. And then I want you guys to think about what's going on now. Because when we talk about, man, what about that crazy time in history, Lenin, or when Hitler came to power, or Stalin, or Mao, or whatever it was, and we go, man, that's just crazy. Like, I don't know, people's brains might have worked differently back then, or there was this weird mass formation psychosis that they bought into these things. And you go, like, well, there's a lot of parallels from what happened. I mean, this was only just over a century ago. This wasn't that long ago. Some of these things were less than a century ago, 60 years ago. And so it's like, we're not different beasts then. Our brains don't work in a different way. And you look at the way that people were sold a narrative and bought into it, and then the mob adopts the narrative and everyone goes to town. And so I'm going to lay out the principles, and I want you guys to jump in with any current day examples that maybe this kind of reminds you of.
I got one teed up right now that I
know
it's going to fall right into place, though. I know it.
So are you guys familiar with just the basics of the Bolshevik Revolution? It lasted from 1917 to 1923, I think, something like that. And then Lenin came to power. It began with the violent insurrection and actual insurrection.
Oh, you mean like
this gay-ass unguided tour of the Capitol? But
you mean like they had guns?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Did they hurt people?
They had guns then. They didn't after this revolution, which we'll get to in a second.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this began in, I believe, Petrograd, which is now St. Petersburg. They took over Petrograd, and then it basically went on from there. Are you guys familiar with a guy named Rudolf Rummel?
No.
Rudolf Rummel is a famous demographer of government mass murder. There's a job that doesn't get boring.
So demographer of government mass murder.
He studies government mass murder and studies how it works. Like,
he's current, or this is from
current,
back in the day? Okay.
Yeah. I think not current, but he wasn't writing about it in real time.
Okay.
He's a historian.
God damn. I wonder if his house looks like Jordan Peterson's. Have you ever seen pictures of Jordan Peterson's?
He's never had
house?
me over.
Okay. Inside, well, he and I, Jord, as I call him, inside his house is just like,
what up, Jordy?
covered with portraits of authoritarians and just like evil people. It's kind of crazy.
All those tattoos on my leg are all old Soviet propaganda posters. The old work will set you free.
I don't look at your legs.
Yeah? You should.
No, that'd be gay. I'm not gay.
That's why I'm saying you should.
I'm not gay.
So, principle number 1, the ends justifies the means. Now, what Lenin meant by this is...
Okay, I got an article for you. Just kidding.
Did you know Taylor Swift is a Chiefs fan? The ends justifies the means. And what Lenin meant by this, these are things that he outright stated. We're not looking back like, here's what we think he believed. Because the ends justifies the means. And what he's saying from that is, first and foremost, the only thing that matters is gaining political power. So you say what you have to say. You do what you have to do. Whatever it is that you have to do to placate the masses or to get them on your side or to help them bolster up your bullshit regime is just say that thing. Okay? Go. Do you got something?
I actually do have something.
Let's hear it.
You know who Dr. Deborah Birx was? Like, so she was on the Trump administration's COVID response team. So she's the one that came up with 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 15 days to flatten the curve. Right?
How'd that work out?
Well, it turns out that even though they said
2 weeks or 2 years.
No, 15 days.
15 days. Okay.
Yeah, which is roughly 2 weeks. That was all of us supposed to be in the beginning. I remember having an argument with. Do you remember when I had that long argument with that Marxist in my old office space? And it just like
halfway through that sentence, like 300 people popped into my house.
Well, this guy was an avowed.
Do you remember how that long? Oh yeah. Oh
yeah. We don't need to hear
this morning. Right when you.
This dude just was like a straight up avowed Marxist. He believed that everything that Marx wrote was totally legit. I mean, it was like arguing with a sophomore in college or something, just like fully devoted to this ideology.
Like arguing with a stop sign.
Exactly. Well, at that same, it might not have been the same argument, but that same time, that's when 2 weeks to flatten the curve came out. And I didn't know, really, I'd never heard it. None of us had heard it before.
Right.
But what these people in the office were explaining to me is that, no, you don't understand. See, what they're trying to do is just kind of slow down the amount of cases that come into the hospital so the hospital doesn't get overwhelmed. They, you see this bell curve here.
The nurses are doing 12-hour shifts of making TikTok videos, like doing imitations of the Titanic in an empty hospital. We don't want to just flood them with a bunch of people that are actually sick.
They're not prepared for this.
15 days to flatten the curve.
Yeah. And I remember having this like conversation with them and just being like, I don't get that. That just doesn't, my spidey sense is tingling. Like that just seems like bullshit to me. And I think you and I said so. We didn't have the podcast at the time, but had we would have said that. And then
I think that was the main reason why we started the podcast.
Exactly.
Like, dude, it's not 15 days. Like they're going to keep it shut down.
So Birx came out with a book, and in it she,
of course, she writes a book. Just like Andrew Cuomo writes a book. Like, here's how you handle a pandemic. I'm like, motherfucker, you killed like thousands of people in a nursing home. Why are you writing a book about how to handle a pandemic?
So this article from the Post Millennial, I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs out of it. Despite not having adequate data, Birx pushed ahead with her plans to convince Trump and his advisors to go along with her mitigation plans. She writes that in March 2020, she met with the president, and her plan was to obfuscate her intentions for economic shutdowns. So at the point that my spidey sense was tingling, it was because I knew this was coming. Like, what the fuck? They're talking about shutting down all of our lives right now. Her plan was to obfuscate her intentions for economic shutdowns, knowing that Trump was wary of anything that would tank the economy he'd worked so hard to build. I couldn't do anything that would reveal my true intention, she writes, to use the travel ban as one brick in the constitution of a larger wall of protective measures we needed to enact very soon. Trump's team was more concerned about how the impacts and the potential for loss of lives to Americans shutting down society down. She blasts the administration for their concerns over the economy, concerns which have played out in real time to the point where the country could be facing devastating impacts as this is a globe. So she knew in the beginning that what she had to do was just kind of sneak in this 2 weeks. Everyone can palate 2 weeks. You know, you could stomach 2 weeks to just kind of flatten the curve, and then we're just going to get right back to normal. But she knew that you couldn't just say, we're shutting the economy down, motherfuckers. Right. And everyone would have revolted. And so at the times when normal people like us hear that and we don't trust the state and we hear them saying that they need to shut the economy down for just 2 weeks, we know immediately that that's not how it's going to go. Right. And so, but in her mind, it was totally worth it. And I guess that's...
The ends justify the means.
The ends justifying the means, right?
It's the metaphor. This is why people like us, everyone in this room, why we push back against everything all the time. And the metaphor that I always come back to that I think serves pretty accurately is the 15-minute city model. It's like, don't give them the infrastructure like to have some totalitarian hellhole. No, it's like, no, it's for the environment. I was like, I know, but if it was going to be made by an authoritarian psychopath, this would be exactly how they would do that.
We're just putting a 20-foot wall up around the city.
We don't want any viruses getting through.
Aesthetic reasons, yes. And without razor wire on top, pigeons might roost on it and they would poop on the wall. So we obviously need the razor wire.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Exactly. So the ends justifies the means. I mean, this is something every politician does, right? I mean, this is easy to prove. So what Lenin did, his first, as he was trying to get power.
It's what being a politician means.
Yeah.
The ends justify the means.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to lie, cheat, steal, doesn't fucking matter.
So one of the first things that Lenin proposed, like broad land ownership, everyone's like, that sounds really good. As soon as he gets into power, first thing he does...
That wasn't about women's rights, by the way.
No. First thing he does is complete state seizure of all private assets and private property. He declared the private land decree of 1917, I believe it was, that lays out like, okay, now I'm in power, it's all mine. He did a complete 180. Second thing he did, I mean, these aren't like gradual, this didn't happen like gradually. Things didn't change, the science didn't change, right? Mm-hmm. This is things he goes, I'm in power, all right, here we go. Everything's mine, all the land belongs to the state, and he also disarmed the entire population. It is illegal, private gun ownership is illegal, which is every Mao, Khmer Rouge, Stalin,
Newsom,
Lenin, Newsom. So for people these are like extreme, we historically proven examples. We can look back this is clearly what happened. We saw how it worked out. But think about, use that same technique, the ends justify the means. And he's saying, say whatever you have to say to get in power, which he did. And he went back on everything. At that point, I'm in power. So what are you going to do? I'm here now. The goal has been achieved. And now I'm going to implement this psychopathic agenda, and 68 million people are going to die. Can you guys think of current examples of this? I was thinking
Student loan repayment.
What's that?
Student loan repayments.
Student loan repayments. Free community college.
Yep.
Gavin Newsom, mayor. I'm going to end homelessness in San Francisco. Now here's an interesting point. How did that work out for San Francisco?
I haven't been there in a while, but I
it's not good.
According to the human poop on the sidewalk app,
there's an actual app.
It's growing.
You're right. But more importantly, how did that work out for Gavin Newsom?
Oh, pretty well.
We're looking at, he's probably going to be our next president, is what it's looking like. So we can go through all the lies that Joe Biden said, right? I'm going to shut down the virus, not the economy. I was like, he said, I'm not going to make federal vaccine mandates. They say whatever. This is when he was campaigning, but once he's in power, he does like a complete 180. Now we can go through all the stuff that Joe Biden says, and I mean, we'll be here all day.
Well, Trump did the same bullshit.
I'm saying every politician does this, yeah. And to be fair to Joe Biden, I don't think he knows that he's president, so just give him a little bit of grain of salt.
Cut him some slack.
What we're talking about.
Technically, is he president? So he says something in the morning, and then the White House corrects it on Twitter in the afternoon.
Right. So the whole point of the Bolshevik revolution was basically the bourgeois versus the proletariat, and it was basically to take the bourgeois, the producers, and give everything to the proletariat, the working class, the peasants, the workers, or whatever. And the first thing that Lenin did was disarm the proletariat. Do you guys remember that story that a friend of ours had a house guest, and he was an outspoken communist? Mm-hmm. And I got a picture sent of his laptop that said "Arm the Proletariat." I was like, this guy either has the greatest sense of humor I've ever heard in my life, or this dude has never cracked a history book in his entire life.
And is immune to irony.
Yes. Yeah. Completely irony proof. So he also did the, so then he went after the militaries, because how am what's my mechanism of control, which I needed the military. And the military already battle worn and fatigued. I mean, they've been battling, in this area forever. Is he strong in the military? And this is Marxism 101 by breaking up the family unit. And he took the soldiers away from their family. He's like, if you ever want to see your family again, you're going to go confiscate all this land and all these firearms for me. And he's like, and if you don't, you will never ever see your family again. So he leveraged the family unit against the soldiers to basically pursue this ideology in the Soviet Union at this time.
Yeah, most of the soldiers in the Russian army and around that time, they fought because they had to, not necessarily because they were fighting for Mother Russia.
Yeah.
Because if you've read the Gulag Archipelago, you know that a lot of people in the Gulag were soldiers who didn't die on the battlefield.
Yeah.
The fact that they came back alive meant that they were criminals,
and
basically.
We're going to get into the
enemies
gulags
of the
too.
state.
Yeah.
Was there any persuasion?
I know we're getting into the gulags. It's just a matter of time.
Was there any persuasion around the gun confiscation, or was it just like, give me the guns?
It was just give me the guns. Yeah. There was no propaganda there. He was in power at that time. And so he immediately made private gun ownership illegal. To quote Lenin, one man with a gun can control 100 men without a gun. And
God damn it, that's not true.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, technically, that's not true. It is true in a psychological sense. That man with a gun can control people psychologically because no one wants to take a bullet.
Right.
But if 100 men had to defeat one guy with a gun, unless it was like a M60 or something, maybe with a belt-fed kind of huge magazine.
You're missing the point.
Yeah, you're going off the tracks here, Kelly.
Welcome to the Liberty Tree podcast, guys. And my favorite, as far as like, just say whatever you have to say, my favorite Joe Biden clip of all time. Remember he was campaigning? He said he was going to cure cancer. I'm going to cure cancer.
Yes, I do remember that.
So the point is not to point out, like, okay, he's a politician. He's a psychopath. His brain is broken. Like, he's going to hell. Like, fuck this guy. The problem is, the scary part is that room full of people enthusiastically clapping. Like, did you hear that? He's going to cure cancer. And it's like, if you have two brain cells are rubbed together, you're like, no, he's not going to cure cancer. Like, what? Like, that's why you're voting for this guy? Yes.
You know he's a Nazi, right? What?
All right, principle number 2. Control the words and you control the reality. So we talk about this one all the time. So another fundamental tenet of Marxism, which is to constantly manipulate language and the meaning of words, like so much so that they no longer have, there's no such thing as subjective meaning. This would be that Marxist that you were arguing with. It says, like, I'm not going to argue with you based on facts and logic.
Yeah.
You're like, well, what? Like, so do you want to arm wrestle? Like, how else do we do this? This one is super... This one, I think, on the list is like the most interesting because it's so covert. It's like a slow build. It's not like rounding up all the guns. And I was like, dude, this is fucked up. But like to slowly erode the meaning of things and like to undermine like the cultural base of communication. It's something that just happens on like because people don't realize that they're embarking in it. We see that today, right?
Changing the definition of vaccines.
I was just gonna say,
yeah.
Yeah. So why is it all in the same week? You know, Merriam-Webster, Google, YouTube, the WHO, the CDC all changed the definition of vaccine and herd immunity. It's like what you're doing is here's what we want to be reality. Here's reality over here. It's like, well, if we just change the definition of what this is, like we have just realigned reality with the narrative that we want. It's a vaccine. It's like, no, it's not like a vaccine is supposed to stop transmission, it's supposed to stop the disease. It's like, yeah, well, if we just change the definition of vaccine, like, there we go. Now we're right again.
Right. And if you go around changing the definition of words, then you can no longer actually have a conversation with someone or an argument.
Right.
And actually debate somebody on something. Well, you just I don't believe that what you're saying is right, because that's not what that word means anymore. That word means something else now. So you're wrong.
And I would argue that's being done intentionally. It's a way,
of course,
for two reasons. Like we'll just simply, so the more kind of overt way is like we're simply going to just change the definition of something to fit the narrative that we want out there.
You and I might want to actually argue with something on equal terms and actually discuss the merits of the argument.
Right.
And that person is just pulling the rug out of your argument by just changing the definition of the words.
You're in that whack-a-mole game that we talk about all the time. So the second way is to intentionally obfuscate things to such an extent that like this is kind of what you were alluding to right there, that you just can't even have the conversation with someone anymore. So like when Representative Marsha Blackburn gets up there in the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation hearings, it's like, can you define what a woman is? No. You can't define what a woman is? Like, no, I'm not a biologist. And people just go like, okay, I'm done. I can't even, like, it's such a clown world, I'm not even going to pay attention anymore. I think that's being done intentionally too. It's getting you to just check out. So you can't have the conversation. You can't throw your ideas in. It's like, at some point you are speaking two different languages. And are we seeing that today? Birthing persons, men can have periods.
My mom telling me that the Charlottesville demonstration was a modern day lynching. Yeah.
Larry Elder, the black white supremacist.
I'm a black belt.
You're a black belt?
Change the definition.
I'm going to change that definition and just go from there.
What's the new definition?
A guy that's only been doing it a couple of years.
And it's they are intentionally like watering certain terms, white supremacy, domestic extremist, or whatever. You wanting the schools to be open is rooted in white supremacy. Chicago Teachers Union. It's to get you on your hip where you just go, I want the schools to be open. Like, well, that's rooted in white supremacy, and you go like, I'm just fuck whatever. I'm done. Like, do whatever you're gonna do. Like, I just checked out of the, so many people just check out of the conversation because they can't. Yeah. They don't understand the vernacular. Like, the words coming out of our mouth don't make any sense.
Well, and they're not willing, like people on the Marxist left are, to give up their families, their jobs, their livelihood, their comfort, and devote themselves to an ideology. Which is what it would take to keep up with these people.
Right.
It's the game of whack-a-mole it's a
full-time job.
It's a full contact sport.
Is there a Jedi mind trick antidote to combating that when you're in these conversations with people that are changing the definitions?
Well, how can you? I mean,
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is there a technique?
No, it used to be bring the receipts. Okay, I have these facts. Like, this happened on this date. The CIA did this. We illegally invaded this country then. And someone goes like, those are facts, which are a part of white supremacy. I'm not going to listen. It's done intentionally because their ideas don't stand on their own merit. They don't have the receipts. They don't have the facts. They haven't done the dives. They haven't done the research. They don't know the history of what they're talking about. So this is done intentionally. Like, I can just shut this wall off, and this person who did do the work, did do the research, did bring the receipts, and everything, I can refute everything they say.
It's a similar tactic in argumentation as the age-old, I know you are, but what am I? Okay. It's really hard to argue with someone that pulls that out.
Yeah, it's just a bit of an oversimplification, but I see where you're going with that. Okay, what do we know about this phrase? Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Was that Rahm Emanuel?
Rahm Emanuel. Yeah, that's what I thought you guys were going to say. I even wrote that down. This is what they'll say.
It's because that's who said it.
He did.
Right?
He did. He did say that.
He's the most recent person to...
Was he quoting Lenin?
Actually, they all fucking say
He was quoting Lenin.
Was he really?
Yes.
Did he say Lenin? He was quoting Lenin?
No, he did not.
Oh, okay.
That's from Lenin.
Holy
shit. So this is what's interesting. We talk about like the infiltration of Marxism in our culture and our politics in modern day, and everyone rolls their eyes like, okay, dude, whatever. And then you ask people, like, who said this? Never let a good crisis go waste. Everyone's going to say Rahm Emanuel. I was like, that is principle 3 of Lenin's principles of propaganda.
Right.
Lenin came up with that. Is you take this event, and this, we go into the Hegelian dialectic of, remember, problem, reaction, solution. That's what number 3 is. So he takes, so the way that Lenin used this is, we have this revolution, and stop me if this at all sounds familiar. The first things that he said, he's like, we have to react to this revolution. Things are in chaos. draw a modern day example of this. First thing we have to do is shut down all small and medium-sized businesses. Because what he was trying to do is achieve a monopoly of industry that would be state-controlled. And I'm reading this, I'm like, is he talking about COVID or the Bolshevik Revolution right there?
Yeah. Wow.
So
I don't think I've ever heard a parallel that was so on point from Lenin to COVID as what you just said right there.
Yeah. Oh, my God, dude. Speaking of COVID, side story. I talked to my dad the other day. And he goes, Dad, how you doing? And I'm pretty close with him. He goes, I'm so sick. I'm like, oh, what happened? And we just had a health scare. He almost died, a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I went and got that COVID shot, and I'm just so sick right now. I was like, usually I keep it to myself. I was like, Dad, stop taking those fucking shots. He's like, well, I'm just kind of worried my immune system's not so good. I'm like, that's my point. Like, stop injecting yourself with this bullshit. Like, you're already not very good, and you're injecting yourself with this bullshit genetic gene therapy. And he goes, well, there's a new strain going around, and, and he's like pushing back on me. And I just finally lost them all. So can we talk about the luxury of hindsight, Bolshevik Revolution? Well, let's just go back 5 minutes. The first thing you said is how sick you are. I haven't been sick in 5 years, and I'm telling, like, maybe just put it in the background that I might be onto something. And it's one of those situations where I finally go, like, dude, am I the crazy one? Like, I feel like I'm the crazy one. I've had this conversation so many times.
Cut it off right there.
So we were talking about what we brought up a lot on this podcast was the Hegelian dialectic and the problem reaction solution model. So perfect example would be the Buffalo shooting, right? So we had that Buffalo shooting.
You're not talking about the 1880s, right?
No.
Okay.
Not the animal, the city.
Gotcha.
And the next morning is pages and pages and pages of comprehensive gun control legislation to be proposed on Kathy Hochul's desk.
And his manifesto or everything about the guy.
Everything ready to go.
Yeah.
Now, were they burning the midnight oil over there in New York, just cranking out this legislation? Or was that already written?
Gumshoe journalism. They're just hitting the streets, finding out the story.
And here they are. They're like waiting for the problem because we had the solutions pre-written. Or my favorite one that I always bring up is with Project for a New American Century, writing about how we're going to rebuild the Middle East in our image to perpetuate the American hegemony. And it's like we just need that. Like we need what they call it, the new Pearl Harbor to happen, right? And what do you know? 19 Arab hijackers, allegedly, who with no prior flight experience, take a bunch of planes and take them over with box cutters and go through, what's commonly known as the most restricted and heavily militarized airspace in the entire world and start crashing into buildings, the most famous being the North and South Tower in Manhattan, also known as the Twin Towers. And
Twin? I thought there were 3 buildings.
Wait, James, you have twins, right? Triplets. Oh, triplets, right. Okay. Yeah, so these 2 planes go into the Twin Tower. Wait, triplets is that 2? That's 3.
That's 3.
Okay. So these 2 planes go into the Twin Towers and take them down.
Oh, I see what you're doing here.
Decimate everything except for Muhammad Atta's passport, which is the only thing that seems to survive. And what do? Since the hijackers were from Saudi Arabia and
Iraq?
Egypt. Yeah, no. Saudi
they were
Arabia.
From Iraq.
No, Saudi Arabia and Egypt.
Pretty sure.
No, Saudi Arabia and Egypt.
Okay. But I'll have to go back. It's been a while.
Yes, but it's high time that Iraq gets some democracy dropped on its ass. There it is, because that was a solution that was already written. There's the problem reaction solution.
It's funny because what's his face? Osama bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
He had a problem solution reaction model of his own, and it fucking worked, which makes him smarter than the people in power in the United States. And his reaction that he was hoping for was us to invade Afghanistan. And he fucking pulled it off. I mean, he said that he wanted to get the USA
mired down in wars in the Middle East,
in specifically Afghanistan, and make that they're do the same thing that they did to the Russians to the United States.
But
and
unlike Russia, we won
reacted.
That war.
Have to check you on that one.
Or like Biden said, we're not going to leave one American behind when we do cut tail and leave.
Yeah.
So that worked out.
No?
I'm not sure
that worked out. Yeah, you might want to look back in. I don't really know.
All
the details
I know is they hate our freedom. That's all I know.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of, Lenin spoke to that quite a bit too. He goes, he's like, these people are stupid. These are true political elites in that they think everyone's beneath them. They don't think you're not smart enough. We talk about the mind of the collectivist versus the individualist. It's like the reason why they have that kind of mindset is they have nothing but disdain. We talk about on this podcast all the time. If you take one thing away from this when we talk about political elites, just this is it. This is the only thing you have to remember. These people fucking hate you. They have nothing but disdain for your existence. They don't care if you live or die. They prefer if you die. They think there's too many of you at this point. Anyway.
This is documented.
Yes. And so part of the Lenin principle of propaganda is like, keep it super simple. We're doing this for Mother Russia.
Kiss.
The Soviet, yes. Thank you. Keep it simple, stupid. Power to the Soviets. Build back better. Make America great again.
Yeah.
Hope and change.
I break for lemmings.
Follow the science. Yes. You're either with us or against us. Yes. All those bullshit phrases, this is all Leninist propaganda.
Where have I heard that recently? With us or against us?
It's a place. It's got some beachfront property. It's
all right. Oh, Arizona.
Is it Arizona?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I would also add an addendum to the problem reaction solution model, the Hegelian dialectic, is that if we don't feel like waiting around for that problem, for that shooting, or for that natural disaster, or for an attack by some foreign military, just create the problem, right? So all we need from you is the reaction from you fucking low IQ, mouth-breathing NPCs. It's like, we'll give you the problem. We'll make the problem. Mm-hmm. Operation Northwoods, Reichstag fire, Gulf of Tonkin. I don't know. How long is this list?
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction. Assad in Syria.
Beheading 40 babies.
Okay, principle 4. This is one you guys will identify with. Dehumanization is you have to other who the enemy is. Stalin did this. He called the people that weren't getting on board with the narrative the X people. It's like, yeah, these are dissidents. You know, they need to be executed. They need to go to the gulag. Now, do we see that at all today? Here, let's just take America.
Like a science denier?
Science denier, an anti-vaxxer, grandma killer, basket of deplorables. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton just came out and said maybe these Trump supporters need some kind of like formal deprogramming. And
right, that's the othering.
The othering, yeah.
Right.
The greatest threat to America are white supremacy and domestic extremists.
MAGA is now the the FBI said that MAGA is our terrorists. What did they say recently?
These MAGA Republicans are. They lump it together. So these MAGA Republicans and these domestic extremists are the greatest threat to America right now.
I think they just came out, though, and said that MAGA supporters are that's domestic terrorists or something extreme like that.
Yeah, that's the dehumanization, which is a war tactic. So when they taught people to, when they took soldiers to Vietnam, like these zipperheads, these gooks, they're like subhuman, they're animals. It's like,
you see that a lot, actually, with not just Trump supporters, but Trump himself. Like, it's really easy to steal Trump's property and sue him for all sorts of things because everyone knows that he is just the worst thing that's ever happened to the world.
To quote my old client, I don't care that the Steele dossier wasn't real. I know in my heart that cocksucker's guilty. I'm like, okay,
all right,
we're back to the first principle. I'm like, okay, but there's no conversation to be had here.
Right.
So you guys are Trump supporters.
Fine, we're Trump supporters.
I give up. Whatever. Yeah, I'm a Nazi. I give up. Jesus. Principle 5, propaganda by example. So in the case of Lenin and the Bolshevik Revolution is what they did is you overly apply these like overly punitive and like draconian punishments to something that just kind of pushes the line of what goes against the narrative. So, for example, is when they were doing the propaganda that there needs to be a revolution and the state needs to take control of everything. And if that one neighbor you have goes like, didn't he promise broadland ownership, but then you took control of the entire country? You might say that in mixed company, your neighbor George or whatever. And you might in your mind go like, yeah, he did say that. I've been kind of thinking about it, but I don't want to say it out loud. And you come home from your 12-hour shift at the state-owned factory, and your neighbor's fucking hanging from a lamppost in the fucking town square. You're like, okay, noted. You know what I mean? That's propaganda by example. It's forced by like terrifying the population, like going so overboard with how you apply like the punishment of just if someone even gets close. So we talked about with the Gulag Archipelago of like people passing out from clapping so much. It's like you don't want to be the one guy that stops clapping.
Yeah,
because you're going to the fucking Gulag. And like how irrational and like the amount of fear that's instilled in the people in that room leads to this weird, like insane, irrational behavior.
Yeah, and it's chapter 3 in our book that if you are in that situation, fake passing out, that's the easy way out of stopping clapping.
Just claps insane, like go crazy until you fucking
hold your breath.
pass out.
Actually, make yourself literally pass out.
Well, and as to that example point, didn't we just have that guy? I forget his name, but he's going to prison for 7 years for the meme.
Yep, this is what it's going to bring up. Yeah. So we have that. The guy.
I don't mean to keep front running you. I'm sorry.
No. This is great. Does this at all remind you of the insurrection at Capitol?
For sure.
Not the one last week.
Insurrection,
the January 6th, not the one last week.
Was that the one when the anti-abortion or
no,
pro-abortion
different one.
People stormed the Capitol?
Different one.
No,
yeah, the other one.
I don't.
The guy with the buffalo head.
Oh, the guy with the machine gun, gunned down, killed 5 cops.
No, that's a different one.
But didn't 5 cops die that day?
No, just one. No, a cop killed one of the protesters. People get that mixed up all the time.
I was just watching CNN,
MSNBC,
and MSNBC, and my mom said that 5 cops died that day.
20 cops.
I mean, by lynch, I mean they ran them over with a car.
So, can you think of propaganda by example of instilling this feeling, this ethos of terror in someone who's like, we're just pushing back, like we don't agree with what's going on, we're protesting or whatever. You look at some of the sentences that the people got in January 6th. Or
sentences?
7 years, 9 years, 12 years, 17 years. Some dude got almost 20 years who wasn't even there. That's propaganda by example. It was like,
Ontario?
Yeah, we are going to make an example of you guys. So it was like, nothing like this. No one will even think about doing something like this ever again.
And just so we're clear, I mean, we're not talking about attacking the Democrats. This is
everyone.
People, the state is very concerned with nationalism and popular uprisings like this. And that's why those people went to jail. Not because they were Trump supporters or because they weren't voting Democrat. It's because the motivation behind this movement, this nationalist movement, was at its core, I'm going to say, anti-state, if not simply just anti the current system.
Right.
But
which Trump kind of served as a figurehead for that way of thinking, whether that's right or wrong.
Yeah. I mean, as many faults as Trump has, he was very anti-establishment.
Yeah.
And still is. I mean, I don't think that electing Trump is going to fix any of our problems.
Which is why he won't be president again.
But he was very anti-state, and he is not going to be president. Do you think, just a little side note here, maybe this is a question to the group. I've heard Colonel McGregor, Douglas McGregor, say this, and I've heard Roseanne Barr say, actually, they both said it on the PBD or PBJ or whatever that
PBS
Patrick Bet David podcast. That do you think if it comes down to if Trump is on the ballot for president on, let's say, November 1st, 2024, do you think we have an election? Or do you think that they go to the extreme of suspending the election in order to keep Trump from being elected?
I am more akin to say that will be the reality than I was 3 weeks ago.
That they would suspend it?
Yeah.
Wow, even in the last 3 weeks, you think that's...
I remember going like,
what do you guys think?
It's kind of far, but yeah.
I think that if something interrupts the election cycle, that's going to be enough to set the more schizo or kind of wild conspiracy theorist folks absolutely alight.
Yeah.
I think they got a better shot at pushing through another election that's like, a lot of people don't have faith in elections at all anymore, right? Some people,
I don't know why.
Which is by design.
Yes.
I mean, if you don't have to, the less you have to cheat, the better. So if you just convince people that elections are fraudulent, those people aren't going to vote. Your work is done.
Yeah.
You don't even have to cheat.
Yeah,
You just convince them not to vote.
if that is their plan, speaking for myself, it worked great. I just don't feel like it's a open, like, it's not open to scrutiny. We got people that are like doing jail time for questioning it. Those are kind of in my mind the implications that something
propaganda by example.
I was just going to say, right to your point. What do you think, James? Do you think they'll suspend the election?
I think there's a lot more things that could happen between now and then that will derail things.
But if it comes down to it, it's November 1st, 2024.
And he manages to actually be on the ballot.
There's a month to go before the election, and Trump is not in jail, or even if he is, he's still on the ballot. There's a chance, that he's going to be elected. Do you think they suspend the election?
I lean towards that, yeah.
I do too.
Do you guys remember with the lockstep narrative from the left that was campaigning at that time of the biggest of what they said was the reason to not vote for Trump?
Well, it would be the end of democracy.
He'd start World War III.
No, he would crash the economy and get us into World War III. How's that working out for us?
Wait, they were talking about Biden?
He's talking about Trump. Which brings me to principle number 6. This is the last principle of propaganda by Lenin.
Did we skip 4 and 5?
Nope.
Damn it.
Now that I have seized complete political power, I have implemented my will in my awful new political system, and everything turned out to be a complete disaster. Principle number 6, blame your predecessor. Now, this is the one thing I couldn't find a current example for that tries back to Lenin, so I don't know if something comes to your guys' minds that
that's true. It
stands
really
out.
Follow.
Yeah. So,
well, the tough part about that is that Trump does deserve a lot of blame.
Oh yeah.
So
he's a fucking liar, just like all of them.
But have you seen that like hysterical? I think it was a Louder with Crowder that I saw with this hysterical lefty. He was asking the question like, do you really think that the country is better off now than 4 years ago when Trump was in office? Honestly. And this person just lost their mind. Of course it is. And everything that's wrong with the country now is Trump's fault. And Biden is just trying to fix all of it, which, I mean, is exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
Right? Everything is the predecessor's fault, even though all evidence speaks to the contrary.
I saw someone with a verified account lay out the case for why Hamas invading Israel was Trump's fault.
Whoa.
And like it went, I mean, it was like next level gymnastics, head up your ass. Like, I mean, people accuse me of connecting dots that aren't there. I was reading this, I was like, man, this guy's really slicing it thin. It was like 8 steps. Okay, so like then this happened, and then this happened, and then Trump did this, and then Trump did this, and Trump did this. And that's why Hamas like wwent into Israel. I'm like,
wow.
Jesus, dude, like how deranged is this person?
It's like a flat earth argument right there.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, here we go. So there you go. The reason why I want to bring that up is that we look at these, with kind of a quaint looking glass back at history of like these weird, perverted, demented, like historical events. And you're like, well, here's how these things happened. And when I wanted to just hit like one aspect of that, which was the propaganda, because we think about something like this period of history that ended up in the deaths of just within the Soviet Union, 68 million people. And you're like, how do you get to that point? Like, well, it starts here. It's a bunch of low IQ people with memories of a goldfish that just Every day they just take the narrative, they take the propaganda, and you can't. I'm not pointing at the political elites of like this guy's evil. He is evil. He's a fucking psychopath. But the problem is the people that fucking carry that narrative, much as we saw during COVID. I'm like, got it. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 6 feet apart. That guy's a grandma killer. Take the shot. Get the boosters. Keep the schools closed. Close down the small and medium-sized businesses. Those are the people that you need to worry about. And the reason why you bring this up is that I use a lot of metaphors for actual what we know is like modern day warfare, but we are in a psychological war, a psyop, basically, a war on the culture. And it's this low grade thing that's been going on. Are you guys familiar with Yuri Bezmenov at all?
No.
Okay, we'll get into him another time. He was an effective KGB agent. His job was to destroy America, to destroy the culture through psyops.
Yes, I do know about this guy.
He's a fascinating guy.
Yes.
And he goes like, I warned you guys about this in the 70s, and it's still happening, and I don't know why you guys are not listening to me. Like, his job was to destroy America using Marxism.
Yeah.
And so the
More
point
of a
is,
patriot than many Americans.
Yeah, and the war today is ideology and it's information. And as we have said before, like, you cannot prepare for a war when you don't know that you are engaged in one. I think that's what these political elites are banking on, and people just not paying attention, going like, well, there's the narrative. Like, I'm going to repeat it.
Which we, I think, harp on a lot. Like, it's, by the time you realize it's happening, it's going to be too late.
We might need to do a whole nother podcast where just Jake brings up random shit.
That'd be a good one.
So I do have a question on
here,
and I've been thinking about this a lot lately, which is I could talk to 12 people now. I could call them up and they'd give me their version of COVID or their version of the war or their version of, and they'd have receipts and they'd have just as much passion and conviction as we might on this side, right? They believe it as much as their side as much as we believe our side.
Yeah.
And when all this COVID stuff first started,
You're speaking specifically about COVID?
We'll use COVID as the example.
When you're talking about sides, though.
I'm talking about propaganda, but yeah, let's talk about sides. Jacob, in the very beginning of this, just kind of said, hey, I got this far in life using my senses.
Mm-hmm.
And until I start seeing...
Or we call it the walk up the front door
Sure.
test. At the end of the day, like, I don't know, from what I see, what I'm experiencing in my real life, like, something's incongruent here.
Yeah, it doesn't match up. But those people believe it as much as we believe it. So if I kind of back out from that and go, well, why do I believe everything I believe as passionately as they believe everything they believe? And it kind of always comes back to me to the senses or the walk out the door test. Like we live in an area with a lot of homeless people. They're not dropping dead from COVID. Something's not lining up here.
Yeah.
Is there techniques you guys have? Is there ideas that you guys could use that would reinforce your vision of things, your vision of the vaccine, that makes you more right than the people that are pro-vaccine that think they're just as right?
I think so for using COVID as an example, I've had this experience twice this week, once with a friend, once with my dad, who are all in on the vaccine and the boosters, and I'm a fringe conspiracy theorist, they both were incredibly sick with COVID this week. Mm-hmm. And I go like, okay, so what does that tell you? Like, you're bitching to me about being sick. I was like, and I'm also the crazy one who hasn't been sick in 5 or 6 years.
Right.
I was like, so that would be like the walk out the front door test. And I was like,
and I had 5 people.
I was like, Dad, recall the first text you sent me about how sick you are.
Right.
And like, so I don't understand like how I'm the crazy one.
But your question is more about a solution. Like, what is what technique do you have?
I had 5 people in my family die.
Is to point stuff like that out. That's the walk in front. Like, okay, so here's what we do know.
It doesn't work
because you have your study, I have my study. Like, let's say, like, everything's off the table. But let's distill it down to what do we know to be factually true? What's right in front of us, right? And it's the people I know that keep taking the boosters, keep getting sick over and over and over and over again.
I think.
But if we're going to make any leeway, we have to convince those people to stop taking boosters.
I'm not here to make leeway.
I was just going to say, if your goal is to convince people, then, I don't necessarily think that convincing people is a strategy. That's not how the Marxist left didn't take over all of our institutions and our education system and the government and everything that's controlling us now by convincing people. And I think that our goal should be to take over, personally. We should take over
the institutions,
all of these institutions. But I will say that if your personal goal is convincing people, the skills of argumentation, the people that have written books about argumentation, it would just be like, point things out to people without attacking them, and they'll come around. I think that even my own, the people in my life that are the most insane about this kind of stuff are, if I phrase it right, they're open to logic. Like your dad, if you don't attack him, and you just point things out to him that, you got vaccinated, I didn't, maybe something to consider. Yeah. That they come around to it. Eventually, you just can't force people to it. People need to come to it on themselves. They need to have an exit ramp. We've talked about that on a couple episodes. Yeah. We need to leave people an exit ramp so they can back out of this total dedication to this insane ideology that they've adopted without being criminal. Because if they're criminalized, then, they're going to go down fighting. They're going to battle to the
their
death.
heels in even more.
Yeah.
Those are the same people that would have criminalized us for not taking the vaccine, though.
Yeah, well, if revenge is what you're after, then
it's not revenge. It's not revenge. It's not revenge. It's
blast them.
No. It's more about. I think we're in much deeper water than maybe we know, because you get a 51%.
No, the world's ending. So stock up on ammo, stock up on food, and come up with some plans to. So, just as a quick little anecdote. My wife, Gertrude, you guys know her, went to the East Bay this weekend, and so I was home with the boy, and my phone didn't make a noise at 3 a.m., but I was awake, and I dreamt that I was kind of half dreaming that it made a noise, and for some reason my brain went to, we just had an EMF attack, and...
EMP?
No, the... EMF?
EMF's the band from the 90s.
That's what I mean.
Oh, okay.
They were attacking my house.
That's real trouble right there.
Sorry, EMP attack. And
unbelievable.
Oh
shit.
My body armor. My worst fear is coming true. Junior, grab the gun. So I heard my phone, or I dreamt my phone made this noise, and for whatever reason, my brain went to the EMP attack, and I instantly thought, like, okay, my chick is in San Leandro, which is not that far away, or Oakland, whatever, is not that far away, but now nothing works, and we have no plan, like... What am I going to do? Am I going to take my 5-year-old down to Oakland, get her, and then come back on foot or on bike? Like, how the fuck do you figure that out? Am I going to just sit around the house waiting for her to figure it out? Like, she's going to walk by herself back to Santa Rosa from Oakland? Give me a fucking break. And it made me realize that our planning is severely lacking. So I think that all of us need to focus on, I really do think that we're coming to a head right here to make a, this isn't a Liberty Tree prediction. I think everyone's kind of feeling the same thing. Make sure that you're prepared. Make sure you have the food in the freezer and the food in the cupboard, and you have a plan for what happens when the power goes out, or what happens when every scenario happens. And everyone, especially the people that think like us, we have to band together and survive this catastrophe that's coming.
You're unbelievable. You're unbelievable.